Why do you play video games? In all fairness, it's a complex question. For some, it's an escape from reality. For others, a great way to challenge themselves. Or, of course, to play through a story rather than simply view it. But for me, it's always been a great way to experience someone's creative vision. Now that sounds unbearably pretentious, I'm aware, but really, it's the same reason anyone watches films by a certain director or anything in a certain genre. Video games are a fantastic way to catch a glimpse into a team of people's heads. No matter how big or small the development team, they come together united by one goal to create the best gameplay, visual, or narrative experience they can muster. And the reason I talk about this is because Hollow Knight is one of the most unique and well-crafted gaming experiences I've ever played. The world and gameplay that Team Cherry has developed is easily one of the most distinct and creative I've seen ever. Hollow Knight feels wholly its own, and after beating the game, I can confidently and honestly say that it has genuinely broadened my horizons as both a storyteller and just a video gamer. It's introduced me to an entirely new genre of gameplay and given me a world that there is more than enough to sink my teeth into. So with that being said, let's hop off our resting benches and dive into the darkness to talk about how Hollow Knight conquered both game design and atmosphere. I will never forget the first cutscene of this game. The Hollow Knight walking through a decaying land, mystical forces awakening, and one heck of a fall. With little context, I found myself placed on rocky terrain with a simple path to follow. As I ventured further, I met with a friendly face in the form of Elderbug, who had quickly become one of my favorite characters after just one conversation, and after getting acquainted with my surroundings, into the depths I went. Even from the very beginning of your exploration, the best aspect of this game makes itself known. You have no goal as this wanderer, so it's up to you to find one, if there's even any to find. The game design behind Hollow Knight, in my opinion, goes beyond the standard Metroidvania design philosophy by having a much more sizable world than what you normally find in the genre. All sense of direction is practically non-existent. Normally, players are equipped with maps or the ability to create one of their own as they travel, but this game forgoes that philosophy to truly immerse you in its world. And it's a little intimidating, honestly. But fortunately, even from the start, the world design is excellent at teaching you your capabilities and the trials of the Hollow Nest. Take, for example, something as simple as this cavern here. Although it's only a small little cave at first glance, it's actually a mini arena. One in which you can learn how to properly attack and maneuver yourself around enemies. Shortly after, platforming and more intricate enemy placement appears in the form of these little wall crawlers. Again, this may seem like very small stuff, but it's the thought behind these small elements like this that showcase what I personally believe is the best way to design an open world, which is essentially to create one massive level. And whenever I say level, I'm mainly talking about 2D platformers. Although this may be an extremely odd pull, take Sonic 3 for example. The game is a fast-paced 2D action platformer with massive levels that encourage and heavily reward exploration. It's easily one of the best designed games I've ever played. Everywhere I go, there's something to discover, and the better I play, the more opportunities I have to explore. Both Hollow Knight and Sonic 3 are incredibly different and unique games, but both strive for one goal: immersion. Sonic 3 may be an odd pull, but the reason it came to mind over other Metroidvanias I've played is because of the pure quality in its design. And though I've played and completed Metroid Dread and Zero Mission, both are fantastic titles, I feel like both games can leave the player lost on several occasions due to what is, in my opinion, a lack of clear direction. And I don't mean objectiveless in the sense that there is no waypoint telling the player where to go, but rather there are not enough context clues around the world to truly point the player in a solid direction that they should keep exploring. Hollow Knight, on the other hand, has taken the best elements of linear level-to-level platforming and exploration and expertly integrated them into an open world in such a way that never feels directionless. With how seamless the integration is of all of these fantastic aspects of game design, it's kind of hard to point out exactly what makes Hollow Knight so exciting to explore on a gameplay level, but if I had to boil it down to one key factor, I'd say it's the pacing. Hollow Nest is filled to the brim with a myriad of locations, each one with its own unique flair. For example, the Green Path is the second area you'll likely come across after the relatively tame and depressing Forgotten Crossroads. The plants there range from gorgeous to dangerous, often with enemies using their environments to disguise themselves in order to launch an ambush. Crystal Peak is another entirely unique area, with conveyor belts aplenty as the miners attempt to dig their way through the rocks, not to mention the enemies harness those crystals' power in order to attack you. And of course, one of my favorite areas in the game being the crumbling City of Tears. Its lingering guardsmen having by far some of the best defensive and offensive ability in the entire game from common enemies. Everywhere I just listed, practically every area in the game even, can be simplified into their own unique levels or zones, and with each new area cleared you go stronger, with an accompanying sense of where you are in this world and where to go next. But before we move on, I'd like to remedy that previous statement, as labeling different environments as zones only works with the bare context in mind, since the way Hollow Knight created these kingdoms removes any sense of gimmicks or disconnectedness. Each area has a specific history to it, easily pieced together with context clues in its environment, if not outright spoken to you by a local or fellow traveler. And at the end of the day, each area has overlapping enemy designs, or better yet, similar terrain to showcase the interconnectedness of this underground world. And it's these factors that make Hollow Knight such a satisfying game to explore, as each new challenge feels like an undiscovered part of this larger world. Equally, if not more importantly than the world you explore, is the character you control. The character of Hollow Knight doesn't have a character, and normally I hate mute avatar characters, but this is the sole exception out of all the games I've played. The small motions the knight has in response to his surroundings, combined with a design that gives valid reason for total lack of emotion, allowed me to truly feel like I was the one exploring Hollow Nest. Personally, I walked away from the game thinking that my knight was simply the ultimate sightseer with a knack for combat. Oh yeah, we should probably talk about the combat. To begin, you have a simple jump and horizontal sword slash, and that is it. But as the game progresses, the knight collects a tons of upgrades in the form of an air dash, double jump, boost ability, and a pretty sick long-range soul attack. There's also a ground pound and upward blast ability, but they're not very practical during combat I've found personally, and the ground pound itself is hardly used in exploration. There are a few upgrades for the needle, but each one is more or less just a charge attack. Needless to say, the knight gets more than equipped for the challenges ahead, and challenges there are. This has to be one of the most difficult games I've ever played, but it's likely due to my own preferences. Either way, the game's challenge is one thing that kept me going. The standard encounters while exploring are normally doable endeavors, but for some of the more intricate enemies, they can give me a serious run for my money. But the boss fights are frankly an experience all their own. The level of ferocity and speed in their movements, even for some of the larger foes, is something to fear. Each boss fight is heart-pounding, but throughout all the intensity of the battle, each death felt entirely fair. The enemy's attacks are choreographed, and it was always my fault not reacting accordingly, and so back to the bench I went. I'll elaborate on the benches in a later section about overall design, but it's in these safe havens that you can change badges you acquire throughout your adventure. Some are as simple as having little flies go and pick up fallen money so you don't have to, or there's even some that do something even more simple, such as having your position on the map. Then some of the larger badges have things like an entire shield that circles you as you play in order to defend you. They add a lot of variety to the gameplay, and odds are you'll find one that suits your style. Back on the topic of benches, I want to go over exploration. The way Hollow Knight works is there's no save screen or anything like that. The only way you're saving your game is to rest up at a bench. And yeah, it sounds kind of archaic, but I assure you, the amount of resting points are plentiful, and odds are the journey to where you died won't be a grueling one. But make sure to head back to where you died and fast, because wherever you died, a spirit remains restless and you have to take it back in order to heal your mana bar. But if it's in a tight spot, you can always summon it back at a shop near Dirtmouth. Shops are both extremely convenient and, in my opinion, situational in Hollow Knight. The ones at Dirtmouth are great for buying heart and mana expansion pieces, as well as visiting the Cornifer's wife to buy his maps, which are a godsend. Although I mentioned a lack of maps earlier, technically that isn't the case. As you venture, you'll find the Cornifer marking maps himself, but those are vague outlines as you still need to fill them out yourself as you explore. But to truly get all the bang for your buck, you're going to want to purchase some patches that mark specific locations on your map, because otherwise, odds of you finding shops and other extras are pretty low. One drawback of those patches is it doesn't tell you specifically which shop is which, so that makes them situational to me because if I'm not right next to it, I may have to take some serious time out of my journey to visit somewhere that may not even be worth it to me. But that can be mitigated, as you can access stag stations which act as a fast travel, as well as a train which does the same thing, but with more specific locations. But the best patches are the ones marking specific items for completion that have made clearing out Hollow Nest a breeze, which I really appreciate seeing as I've only acquired the means to complete some of these tasks during the late game. However, what makes turning over every rock, dashing over every gap, and vanquishing every enemy worth it to me is the world and people of Hollow Nest. The hand-drawn art style is beautiful in every sense of the word. Not only does the art look great in isolation, but the subtle effects added in gameplay make its integration into said gameplay feel natural and even real. I don't know how to best articulate it, but even with these cartoonish designs, the colorwork and overall design portray the dark aesthetic masterfully, and it's easily one of my favorite visual styles in a game or otherwise. Everything feels so alive. When it comes to the people in the caves below, what's not to like? Some of my favorites are the previously mentioned Elderbug for his calming, somber presence, Cloth being such a big doofus is always a treat to encounter, Zote the Mighty is hilarious no matter the situation, both Quarrel and Hornet are amazing to fight alongside and against, proving to be worthy adversaries. And of course, I could never forget Grubfather and all his generosity after helping out his kiddos. I'd mentioned some more story-oriented aspects, but during my playthrough, as I've since discovered after watching others' runs, I went extremely out of order. I hadn't discovered the main objective was to kill the Dreamers until all of them were already killed and absorbed. On the one hand, that may sound like a detriment, but I honestly think that it's great to have that level of freedom that I got so far into the game without even knowing it, and I still felt like I had purpose and wasn't lost. And seeing as this is how my progression went during my playthrough, previous characters' words had been recontextualized, fulfilling me as a player with a new sense of purpose and further love and appreciation of the experience so far. I love Hollow Knight. For half a year, maybe longer, I've been wanting to make this video but never found the right words. To talk about something like this, something so interpretive, unique, and made with such clear love and passion is intimidating. I didn't want to leave anything unappreciated, but I think I've done my part expressing what makes Hollow Knight such a breathtaking experience and why I love it so much. Everything about this game just resonated with me. The gloomy look reminded me of Tim Burton in a way, and that style of cartoonishly dark is one I will always have a fondness for. I bought this game for the art style, knowing well that I'd never played a game in this genre before, and I trusted this to be a worthwhile experience from both word of mouth and trailers. I've been playing Hollow Knight for probably over a year, and each time I return, ironically given the game's gloomy nature, I feel at home and ready to start a new adventure. That sense of immersion, that sense of satisfying gameplay progress, that sense of pure unfiltered wonder and joy is why I love Hollow Knight. For those who haven't given this game a shot, I implore you to do so, as I have never seen a game with such expertise conquer both game design and atmosphere.